Morning everyone, welcome back to the workshop. Now in this video I'm going to attempt to retrofit a Vise to my existing workbench. So I want to add a tail / wagon Vise to this bench. One of the biggest areas that this bench suffers is clamping work to the surface. So I want to put a board on top of my bench like this and work on its face so that I can plane it down. I really struggle to lock it onto the bench. My existing tail Vise with a little dog in it never really holds. The dog always slips, it falls down. So it's not great. It's an area of this bench that I want to improve. So that's what we're going to attempt to do in this video. Now, I have a screw Vise system here. However, this is actually meant for L-shaped tail Vises. It's not designed to make a wagon Vise, but we're going to use this to make a wagon Vise because it's a nice cost-effective option. It has everything we need right here. I paid €40, in around €40 for this. I got it from Workshop Heaven, so it's a nice cost-effective option. We have a bit of retrofitting to do to make this work. So let me get you in for a closer look and I'll show you what the plan is. Okay guys, so very quickly, let's run through the plan and have a look at what we're going to do. So here's my existing Vise. There's the dog in it. It's just a standard kind of quick release woodworking Vise. You know the type. Raise the dog up, lock it down, but it never really locks down. The dog always slips back down. And my row of dog holes are in the center of my table. I really need them to be out to the edge for it to be most effective. So that's what we're going to try and do. So we have to remove this. Now, here is our screw that we have. So again, like I said, this is designed to be used with an L-shaped tail Vise, not a wagon Vise, but we're going to use it because all the parts will actually work for a wagon Vise as well. So there's where we put our handle. That's fixed to the screw, so that turns the screw. This guy, the plate moves independently, so we better fix that to the end of our table. That will hold it in place. And then this guy, when we turn the screw, will move up and down on the screw. So we'll use this to fix our piece of timber too. That's going to have our dog holes in it that can move up and down and then lock our piece to the table. So that's the plan. So what we need to do is take out two of these 4x2s or 2x4s because this is almost 4 inches wide. So I'm going to remove a section out of this table. I'm going to square off the end, remove a section of this 4x2s out of this laminated top. I'm going to make an oak block that will attach to this guy here and our dogs will sit in that. So we're going to have hopefully 2 dogs. It's wide enough to get 2 dogs, so we'll get a dog either side of the screw, and our oak block might have maybe 2 to 3 dog holes in it, and we can place these in any one of those holes, and then we'll have a corresponding row of holes run down the table. So that's what we're going to attempt to do. Let's get on and do it. Okay, so first job is to remove the existing Vise. So let's get this out of here. Oh God. There we go. Now we have to look at what we have to do with this end. Okay, so now that the Vise is gone, you can see I had it recessed into the end of the workbench, so we got to tidy this up. And anyway, this bench is not square, so let's take this opportunity now to square it up. So I have just squared off the edge, so I have a line the whole way across here. So what we're going to do is set up the track saw, and we are going to square off the end of this bench. So I'm going to cut as deep as I can with the track saw, and then we're going to have to finish it off with a hand saw. So let's get on and do that. Okay guys, I have the ends of the workbench squared off. It's not too bad a job. I'm not going to be super particular about this because I do intend on rebuilding my bench at some stage. So this is like a little test run for me as well as showing you guys what to do. So we're not going to be super particular about it, but I have a piece of sapele here that I'm going to use for my end board now. So that's going to go right on the end there. We're going to drill this through the sapele and attach to that. So I'm just going to get my measurements there. So put my plate onto my sapele. I can see how far my screw goes. I'm going to come back 60 mil because I'm going to put that screw into the timber. It'll all make sense now when we're doing it. So that's how we're going to measure that. So now I want to take out these two 4x2s from here back to here. So I'm going to run 2 cuts with the track saw. We want to make sure that those cuts are perfectly perpendicular to this face and perfectly parallel to each other. So let's get on and do that. Okay, I'm just going to use my square to set up my track. Just like I said, keep my cuts perpendicular to the end of my table. So that's exactly where that wants to go. And I have my mark so I can see where I need to start my cut from. So that is good to go there. Okay, so guys, we have our 2 cuts run in out to the edge. Now I haven't obviously gone all the way through. The plunge saw or track saw is not deep enough, but that's okay. We want that to be the case because I don't want to cut through the end of this yet because the table could separate or move, and these 2 ends or walls that we've created now with the track saw mightn't stay parallel to each other. So I have the piece of sapele here. I'm going to screw this onto the face. So I've marked it out so that the screws are center of the 4x2s, and I've left a gap here where my vise is going to sit. So that's going to go right on the end like that. So it's going to be screwed in place for now because we need to take this on and off. We need to mark it when it's in place for installing the vise. We need to take it back off, take it to the pillar drill. So it's going to be screws for now, and that'll hold the end of this together so it doesn't spring apart, because there could be tension in this. It's all glued up, and this wood has shrank and moved a lot. So when you cut down through it, like, these could pop apart and these walls mightn't stay parallel. So we'll get this end on first and then we'll chisel this out. Let's do that. Okay, so it's just a case of lining this guy up nice and flush at the top. We can plane everything back, but we just want to get it in place, like I said, so that we can hold this table and that we don't cause it to pop apart. So let's get that. I'm going to leave it slightly proud so that I have an edge to plane back. Okay, that's our end board on. That's now in place. So I'm going to start cutting this out now. So let's get on to that. This should hold the table together, like I said, stop it popping apart. And then we can mark this when it's in place for getting our vise in. Let's get on it. Okay, so next step, I'm going to take a bit. I'm going to start removing out a lot of this material. I'm going to keep away from the edges. We've created 2 nice side walls with the plunge saw, so we can work our chisel off that to keep everything nice and straight and flat when we're cutting this out. But we'll just get rid of most of the material, so we're not hammering away all day. I'm going to drill a load of holes with this, get it out, then we'll get the chisels on this and we'll start cleaning it up. Okay guys, so there we go. That's most of the material out of the way. Now it's on to chiseling. And I was just using the Milwaukee drills there. I can actually tell you that the Gen 3 drill is a lot more powerful than the Gen 2 drill, even though it's a lot smaller. So how they managed that one, I don't know, but they did. But yeah, there you go. So I'm going to start hitting this out now just with the chisel. I'm going to hog out most of the material. And then when it comes to the edges, I'm going to use the edges as a guide for my chisel to go all the way down through to finish out the cuts that the track saw wasn't deep enough to do. So let's just get on and start banging this stuff out. Okay guys, I'm nearly there now. It's a little bit rougher down below. I'm not at all concerned about that. Again, like I said, this is not going to be my permanent workbench. And if you were building this from the start, you would have it cut in nice and neat. We're retrofitting this to a pine top, so it's not the end of the world. And if there's a bit of breakout on the bottom, I'm also not concerned about that. So I'm just using my walls that I've established with the track saw just for my chisel. So I get nice perpendicular cuts, just cleaning it off, that's all. As we go down, we only go down the depth of one 4x2, so that's more or less done. And I've only the back wall to clean off now, so I'm going to get on and do this and just work my way down. I've established a straight perpendicular wall there, or a nice vertical wall. So I'm just going to work my way down that, hit in, hit down, hit in, hit down, hit in. It's nice and simple. I can look in across my chisel like that. I can see that it's nice and perpendicular to the workbench. Just knock it in. And we can work our way on down now that we have that wall established. Okay guys, so for me it's day 2 on this build. I have the hole now cleaned out, so let me get you in for a closer look and I'll show you where I've progressed to. Okay, very quickly catch you guys up to where I'm at. So I have the hole cleaned out. Now again, it's not super nice joinery I'm doing here. We're retrofitting this to an old pine 4x2 bench or 2x4 bench. If you were to build this or design this from day one into your bench, you would have all lovely hand cut joinery here, but we're not doing that. We just want to retrofit it to an old bench. So I have it nice and cleaned out. Again, just using the side walls I established with the track saw to chisel down off, and then just finishing everything up with the rebating block plane or the rabbiting block plane for my American friends. Just clean up all the corners. Now I've just added a sapele block to the end here. Again, we've got 4 screw holes in it. This end is a bit ratty, the end of the 4x2s, so that's going to clean that up nicely there, and it's also going to take our screw through the center of this as well. Now I have the oak block here, so this is just the oak block that's going to act as our vise for holding our dogs. That's going to move up and down on the screw inside in here. This is just scrap bits of oak that I've glued together, 2 pieces that I glued together. Ignore the grooves in this, they were existing in the piece already. Like I said, I'm just using a scrap piece. So that's going to sit in there. The screw is going to run through this, and the flange plate on the vise kit will actually screw to the end of this, and that will move up and down inside in there with probably 4 dog holes in this. And we could actually use this end as a clamp too between either side of the screw. So that's where I'm at. Now the next thing we want to do is get this all marked up for drilling our holes to take our screw. So let's get on and do that. Okay guys, this may not come down on camera, but I've turned the exposure down, you might be able to see it. I'm using my laser. Now if you guys have been following any of my builds, you know I love to use a laser level on woodworking projects, especially aligning guitar necks and things like that. They're absolutely fantastic. They're a great bit of kit for doing this kind of stuff, for lining anything up where you need to get precision. Especially in woodworking, you mightn't think of using a laser, but believe me, when you get yourself one of these, you'll be amazed at how many ways you can use it to actually align your project. So I have this laser now dead center of where I want my screw to be. So I'm just going to mark the center line there and mark the center line there. Now I can square down off these lines, and I know that I'm laser straight for my screw to run through. So then it's just a case of square down this face, mark the center of this, then we can put the 2 of these together and screw through them. So let's do that. Okay guys, I've squared down from where my laser struck my edge, and I've marked the center of this piece, which is exactly where the screw needs to go through. I'm going to oversize the hole for the screw on this end because it has the flange plate that screws on, so the screw doesn't actually have to sit in this. So I'll have a little bit of play and a little bit of movement in this hole because it will be fixed through these 2 holes here. Now, you can also see another advantage here of using the laser. So you guys might be able to see the laser line just here. That's going straight through my hole. So what I can use that for now is keeping my drill bit nice and level. I can look down to make sure that I'm perpendicular this way, and then I can look at my laser on the side of my drill bit to make sure that I'm going in at the right, or at level is what I should say. So there you go, and I've also just clamped a block of timber behind this to stop the breakout. So let's get on and drill it. There we go, one clean and level hole. Okay, so the next thing to do is to mark the hole in this guy. I'm going to use this hole as a guide. Now this hole is going to be 28 millimeters, which is the exact width of the screw. So I'm just going to use this to mark the center of that hole. So those 2 are perfectly flush with each other now. Just take this guy. And I literally just want to mark the center of that hole. So there you go, right there, just the center point. So that's going to be the center for my 28 mil hole. Right, this piece I'm going to do on the drill press, just very quickly give you guys another good use for your laser. So if you have cross lines in your laser, you can line up your drill bit, so you know that that's perfectly straight. Then you have a laser line on your table, which means you know you're perfectly level and perpendicular to your bit. So you can see how laser levels are extremely handy around the woodworking shop. Okay, so now we know these holes are exactly where they need to be. They're good and perpendicular and straight through. Now we need to make sure that we get these aligned this way. So I know my bench is perfectly level, which it is, spot on. So I'm just going to reference from these 2 pieces and get that perfectly level. That needs to go down just a touch. Here we go. That is absolutely perfect there now. So I know my screw traveling to these through holes is going to be perfectly level as well. So when we get screws in this guy now, and then we want to deepen this hole back in so our screw can travel in as far as it needs to go. That's that guy in place. Now I can use this as a guide to drill the depth I need to go with my screw. Now I'll just retrieve the 28mm bit. Get another little top tip for you, magnet, chuck key. It's always there. Okay, just looking at how far in this screw has to go. It actually has to go the full depth of the bit I need to drill. So I can start it off with this, and then if I need to take this guy back off to finish off, to get deep enough, I can absolutely do that. So let's get on and do it. Okay, we can take this guy off and finish out our hole. Okay, we should be deep enough for our hole now, so let's just test. Fit this guy. That looks good. Let's tap it home. Nice. That should be good. So we'll be fixing this guy on here, 2 screws, and our screw will turn inside in there. That should work nicely. I can just ream that a small bit just to take a bit of pressure off the screw, but we should be good. A little bit of grease inside in there as well. Won't harm anything at all. So yeah, there we go, happy days. Okay, so now that we have our screw in place, everything is aligned perfectly, working happy days. Now we need to look at the part of our vise that's going to move and contain our bench dogs. This is the oak block, so we got to drill straight through this now in the drill press. This is the hardest hole to drill, I suppose, because we got to keep this exactly right. Now there's a name on this, the traveling part of the vise. It won't come to me right now, so let me know in the comments what's it called. But again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this to get my center point. I'm going to let this block sit slightly proud of the workbench, again, so I can plane this back flush with the top of the workbench, and I can plane all these edges and stuff back when we're finishing up this job. So again, just going to take the 32mm bit, seat that in there, give it a couple of taps just to make sure I'm hitting the center point, and I am. So there's my center point mark now. So now we got to drill this guy out. Let's do it. Okay guys, I'm all set up to drill this. Now this is our most crucial hole, I suppose. This needs to be dead straight, dead square, level, plumb, whatever you want to say it, through this piece. And I'm going to use a 32mm bit, which is oversized, so it's bigger than the screw. So it gives us a little bit of leeway, a little bit of play, and it won't be binding on the screw as it's moving up and down. There's a plate and a screw that goes onto that vise, as you saw, and there's 4 screw holes which will actually lock on to this block. So that's what we'll be using. So let's get on and get this drilled. Okay guys, I don't like the way this bit is deflecting, so I'm actually going to start this off with a Forstner bit. So I'm going to reset up again and go as deep as I can with the Forstner bit. The Forstner bit is obviously not long enough to go the whole way through the block, but by that time it should be a good enough of a guide hole to keep this guy straight. Okay guys, there we go. Our screw is back in place temporarily, and we have our piece of our vise that travels. Again, the name is escaping me, but be sure and let me know in the comments. So the 32mm hole, you see, gives us a nice bit of play. It's not going to bind or catch on the screw, and we can move up and down freely. It is going to be this part now that goes onto the screw with the 4 screw holes that's going to catch this block. So I'm just lifting it up to make sure that runs freely. Exactly to where I had it when I test fitted. I want to be slightly proud of the workbench because I want to plane this back flush with the workbench. So that's where we want it to be. Okay, so let's get our 4 screw holes marked. Okay guys, we have everything in place. I just want to make sure I'm holding this block up to where it needs to be. Now we can mark our 4 screw holes. Make sure we're keeping that nice and straight. Go. Okay, I've taken it out to put this back in. Obviously, I can't get a screwdriver in here, so we're going to screw it on here. All the holes are marked, and I've just pre-drilled them. So I'm screwing into end grain now, so I want to make sure that I don't split the timber. So I'm just going to use a little bit of beeswax as a small bit of lubricant on the screw, and we can screw these guys home. Get nice and easy. There we go. So let's get this fit up, and then we can mark it out for drilling our dog holes and test fit everything. Right guys, we have everything reinstalled just for the final test. So everything is working nicely, so I'll just drop the handle in just to give you guys a look. So here we can wind it back and we can wind it forward. So you can see how it operates now. So now we need to put dog holes in this guy. And we actually have another little vise here. So this can actually be used as a little vise now to clamp stuff into at the end here, which is really nice. So just like that. Now I've just put 2 screws in this guy here as well. So that's captive now. And so when you turn the screw, this guy has to move up and down because the screw obviously can't go in and out. So just like that. Now this is slightly proud, like I said, so we'll plane this back. But what we'll do now is we'll disassemble this, and I'm going to sand everything. We'll bevel some edges, make it look nice, get a little finish on it, and then we get the final few adjustments and we get the dog holes drilled. Let's do that. Right guys, I just have it disassembled now. I only have to sand the face of this and the face of this, put it back in place. We can do the chamfered edges when it's back in place and get a bit of finish on it. So I'm just going to use a clamp now just to hold the end of this in place. Actually, I'll get it on this way because when I take this off, it's going to relieve a little bit of tension out of this bench. So I just want to keep that held there, so it goes back on exactly where I took it off so that everything remains aligned. So you can see why it's kind of important the whole way through this build, if you do something like this, to keep this guy fixed in place so it stops everything from moving. Just helps you be a little bit more accurate. Okay, let's get this off. Okay guys, pieces are sanded and reinstated, the clamp is off, so no drama, held everything nicely in place. I've just glued it now, so a bit of Type on 3 behind it, just to glue and screw this piece and this piece on, so we just get a good connection onto the end of the bench. So that's happy days now. Now it's a case of we're going to plane this flush, match everything up, get a pre-finish on this, then we can reinstall our screw, and we need to flush off the wagon part, whatever it's called, that piece that goes back and forward, and we need to then drill out and mark out for our dog holes. So let's do it. Okay, now that's all nice and flushed off. We just want to put a chamfer on our outside edges just to stop the edges breaking off. Okay, there we go, a nice decorative chamfered edge on that. That's all taken care of. Now I want to just get some finish on this before I screw this all back together. So I'm just going to use a little bit of boiled linseed oil. That's what my workbench is finished in, so we're going to just keep using that. Now I apologise for the sun going in and out. It's making it quite hard to film and get the exposure right, but there's not much I can do about it, guys. But yeah, just a nice little bit of boiled linseed oil on that. That's the PD, looks absolutely lovely. Hey guys, there we go. Everything is back in place and working beautifully. I have to say that's really nice. It's a little bit stiff on the stiff side, but it might loosen up over time. Now I've lubricated everything with beeswax, so we'll see how it goes. If I need to take the block out and trim it a small bit, I'll do that, but I'm going to leave it for now. I don't want to take too much off it because I want to see what way the wood moves seasonally. It could expand and could tighten up, and if it does that, I'll take a bit off, but it also could contract some more because we're coming into the summer months and it might loosen up. So I'll wait and see. Now I just want to take the plane to the top of the block here and get this nice and flush with the bench. That's the next job to do. So we'll lock it all the way home and we'll flush it off. There we go. Now my bench needs a little bit of flattening, so I might just get on and do some of that. Right guys, I just flattened off some of the bench. The rest of it is actually pretty flat back here. It's pretty fine, so I just took it down a small bit around the vise, so everything is ready to go. Now I'm just going to actually put 2 dog holes in the end of this vise here. So I have to keep out to the edge in order to avoid the screw, but because this block is compressed in the the bench itself, it should be okay. So I've just marked a series of holes. So we're going to have 2 dog holes parallel the whole way out, and I'm going to keep them at 100mm or 4 inches apart. My last dog holes were 6 inches apart. I thought it was just a little bit big, so I'm going to reduce these down to 4 inches or 100mm. So I'll get on now and drill all these out. Okay guys, there we go. It's all finished up. All the holes are drilled, and I just hit them with a round over bit in the router just to trim up the edges, just to neaten them up a small bit. A bit of boiled linseed oil on the worktop, and it's happy days. And the mechanism is working absolutely beautifully here now. So there's a lot of clamping force in this. What I actually did was I beefed up the screws going into the end here, so up to 80mm, and they're slightly thicker screws as well, so they're 5x80s. So put them in because there's a lot of force pushing back the way, so we don't want this coming off. And once that glue sets up anyway, it'll give us a good tight bond there as well. So now it's just a case of drop the dogs in, put the board in place, and we can just lock it onto the bench, and that's on rock solid, and I can plane away here now. So that's exactly what this bench needed. It's something that I didn't have, was a good way of clamping work to the worktop. Now another little nice feature of this as well, this acts like a vise here too. So there's lots of different jigs I can make that can be caught in that as well, which is quite nice. Let me get you in for a little close-up and I'll show you the operation. Okay, here's a quick close-up of it guys. You can see we've parallel dog holes. You can see this guy travels up and down on the screw. And we've a nice bit of clamping force, and we've also got the vise in here, like I was saying. So we can clamp stuff to the workbench. Now that's quite handy because I can make shooting boards or bench hooks or anything like that with a small piece on the end of it that this vise can now catch, and it will lock them jigs to the worktop or to the workbench. So there's lots of different jigs I can make now. You can even make ones with parallel dogs off the end if you want a slightly wider face to clamp against, that can sit down into your parallel dog holes. That's the advantage of having the parallel dog holes, is you can make longer pieces like this that will actually sit down into it. So yeah, there we go guys. It works absolutely perfectly. I'm absolutely over the moon and happy with this, because it's the one thing my bench has been lacking, and like this was a good test run now to see what will work when I decide to rebuild my bench. I'm going to build a nice hardwood bench, and I'm going to try and keep the components as inexpensive as possible. Like I said, this was €40 and it works absolutely brilliantly. So there you go. Okay guys, so there we go, another project complete. We've added a tail/wagon vise to this bench, and it looks really good and works really well, so I'm actually delighted with this one. It's exactly what I've been wanting to do with a while, and it's exactly what I've needed to make this a more functional workbench. And like I said, it's a good dry run for when I do rebuild a hardwood workbench. This is a good cost-effective option to get yourself a wagon/tail vise. It's the York L-shaped or L-type tail vise kit is what it is. Again, it cost me about €40. I bought it from Workshop Heaven. If you guys are interested in this, you could also adapt this to build yourself a leg vise as well. It has everything there to actually build a screw for a leg vise as well. Again, it's for an L-shaped vise, but like as I've just shown you guys, it works perfectly in this application as well, and extremely cost effective. So everything there, €40 plus a bit of scrap hardwood that I had in the workshop, my existing bench, and away we go. So that's it guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Hopefully you've got something out of it. Now I apologize for the sun going in and out. There's not much I can do about that, but yeah, if you like this video guys, give it a thumbs up. If you're new here, think about subscribing. Comments and questions below. Let me know what you think of this guys. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and like I said, hopefully you've got something out of it. And thanks as always to all the guys over on Patreon who continue to support the channel. And if you'd like to support what I do here, links to my Patreon and PayPal is below. If you ever fancy buying me a cup of coffee, that would be much appreciated guys. So there you go. I'm going to get out of here guys. I shall see you in the next one.